Our MC wanted to reach the peak of martial arts, but he already knew that it was a position he could never achieve, no matter how much he tried. However, he was desperate to achieve his goal, and because of this, he decided to follow a legend that was passed down through generations. Apparently, there was a golden fruit located within a sanctuary that was guarded by a dragon. This is a fruit that is said to grant immortality, and after a hard, long-fought battle against the dragon, our MC reached the golden fruit. He was surprised to see that the fruit actually existed, and he sat on the dragon's corpse like a real conqueror before making a move to eat the fruit. He is confident that by eating the fruit, he will be able to reach the peak of martial arts. Our MC's name was Gilfus Eldrigan, and he was hailed as the strongest in the world. Decades later, Gilfus has gotten old, and he is on his deathbed. He is surrounded by his family members, and sitting beside him is his eldest son, Gilliam. Gilfus notices that his son looks sad, and he urges him to be good, saying his time has come. Gilliam is sad that he is about to lose his father just the same way he lost his mother. As he is about to pass away, Gilfus thinks about the immortality fruit and realizes that it was just a bunch of nonsense. However, he takes solace in the fact that he was blessed with a wife and children. He tells his children that he lived a good life and he has no regrets. Although deep down, this was a freaking lie. Gilfus basically has regrets that he didn't have more time to reach the peak of martial arts. Moments later, he passes away, and suddenly, he opens his eyes again. He is shocked and wonders why everything looks different. He senses that his body is light, and when he looks around, he realizes that he has baby hands. This is when it dawns on him that he is a baby, and he is in a baby's cot. He couldn't believe his eyes, but he tried to calm himself since he was a 10-star in his past life. Gilfus concludes that his position is nowhere near normal, and he starts wondering who could have done such to him. Suddenly it dawns on him that the said immortality fruit that he ate wasn't actually an immortality fruit. The fruit's power was reincarnation, not immortality, just like he previously suspected. This makes him smile as he considers it a better luck to have. With this, he believes that he can finally reach the peak of martial arts. He notices that there are other babies around him, and since he is in a separate building, he figures out that he must have been reborn into the Eldragon family. However, he starts to wonder why there are so many babies in the room. Just then, maids enter the room with feeding bottles. They reach into one of the cots and grab a baby goblin to feed it. Gilfus is shocked to see a goblin in the room, and he wonders what the maids are planning to do. After feeding the goblin with a red substance, the goblin explodes, spilling blood on Gilfus's face. He is shocked to see this, and fear crawls through his body as he tries to figure out what is inside the bottle. The maids then decide to dilute it a bit and continue giving it to the kids. Gilfus is soon grabbed by a maid while he is still trying to figure out what it is that they fed the goblin that caused it to explode. He can clearly see that the content of the bottle is not milk, but it seems to be overflowing with magic. He cannot believe that the maids are feeding babies with something so dangerous. The maid pushes the bottle into his mouth, and when he gets a taste of the bottle's content, Gilfus finally realizes that it is ancient dragon's blood. He cannot believe how insane they are for making babies drink dragon's blood. He finally realizes why they said they are going to dilute it. He decides that he needs to spit it out, but remembers that he has swallowed it a little bit. However, he concludes that a little amount will not kill him. He notices that the other babies are also spitting out the substance and decides that this is the best thing for him to do before he explodes. Just then, it dawns on him that he might be making a mistake by spitting it out. He realizes that if he absorbs all the magic power, he might end up surpassing his past self and finally reach the peak of martial arts. He doesn't have a clue what is going on, but he decides to use the situation to the best of his ability. He drinks everything in the bottle with a face determined to show everyone why they shouldn't mess with him. Even the maid is shocked to see that Gilfus is happily consuming the dragon's blood that is being fed to him. The maid is also glad that things are working in their favor. After he is done drinking the entire bottle, he is placed back in his cot, and he realizes that the other babies also survived the ordeal. Just like a regular baby, he starts feeling sleepy from enjoying a good meal. 7 years later, Gilfus is seen practicing his strength skills by placing a boulder on his feet while doing a one-handed push-up. He reaches 1,000 push-ups before pushing the stone away into the distance. He stares at his bulked body, and he admits that he loves it. Apparently, Gilfus is now named Zeke Eldrigan. Zeke attributes all the strength he has to the quality of the dragon blood that he consumed. The dragon's blood seemed to hold a vast amount of power, and even the babies who ingested just a little gained bodies, which are far stronger than those of regular humans. Thanks to the divine dragon's true source power that he had already absorbed in his past life, Zeke was able to take in every drop of the ancient dragon's unique power. Zeke was able to go through a transformation that left him himself shocked. However, Zeke notices that he is still a one-star warrior, leaving him disappointed since he is supposed to be at least 4 stars. Basically, a star is one's true source of power, which is compressed to its very limit. One envisions their body as a universe and lets the stars move within. It turns out that the difficulty increases with each star because the more stars, the greater the strength. And Zeke, in his past life, managed to reach the rank of 10 stars, which made him the only person in the world to ever do so. It has now been 7 years since Zeke was born as the son of the current head of the Eldragon family, but he is an illegitimate child. His mother had already died, and his father never once showed his face. Zeke cannot believe that he has a piece of trash as his father. Apparently, he reincarnated a millennium later, where the world has become a place for the weak to die at the hands of the strong. There is also a strange ritual known as the Dragon's Trial. Only babies who survive drinking the blood are supposed to be trained as Eldragon warriors, but Zeke has not received a single training from anybody. He tries asking the maid some questions, but the maid simply answers that she is not at liberty to say it. Zeke vents out to the maid, reminding her that those who pass the trial are supposed to get combat training, but he is surrounded by only maids and not a single instructor in sight. The maid acts like a doll as she asks Zeke if there is anything he requires, but he says no. Actually, Zeke can handle himself since he is currently focused on building his body more than getting combat training. Zeke then asks the maid if she can give him information about the other children in the main family, but the maid gives him the same reply, which is that she is not at liberty to say. Zeke tries to twist his way around to get an answer, but the maid maintains her answer. Zeke is pissed as he wonders if this is the only thing the maid can say. Zeke then asks the maid if he is at the house to be mistreated, but the maid debunks this, saying they have been ordered to tend to his personal needs. Zeke notices that the maid is a 3-star fighter, and for combat training, she would help him. Since the maid is not being helpful, Zeke decides that it is time for him to head into the forest. He can't believe that he has been living with a maid for 3 years, and they have no real connection. Zeke expects a reply, but he gets none from the maid, who seems to now be ignoring him. Zeke gets into the forest and eats a bunch of poisonous herbs, which obviously taste awful. However, he doesn't care as he considers it a part of his training. Suddenly, he notices that there is a faint trail following him. He wonders why someone would be trailing him and would not show up to say something. He ignores whoever it might be and focuses on what is coming in front of him. Suddenly, he notices an angry boar in front of him. It dawns on him that the black mist coming from the person trailing him didn't exist in his past life, leaving him to wonder what it is exactly. Nonetheless, Zeke shows himself to the boar, and just as the name implies, it charges toward Zeke. Zeke grins when he realizes that he has the boar's attention. Zeke takes the perfect stance to easily dodge the boar, and once the boar is right in the open, Zeke lands a punch to its gut. This leaves a terrifying impact that smashes the boar's insides and one-shots it. Zeke is impressed that just a light tap from him, who is a 1-star, was able to take the boar out. Zeke then concludes that the quality of the star is what matters, not the quantity. Zeke grabs the boar and puts it on his shoulder as he heads back home. Zeke talks about how he is already tired of staying alone and he thinks of going on an adventure. However, he realizes that the sea will be the only place he can go, even if he wants to go anywhere. Meanwhile, the strange dude who was trailing Zeke is shocked that he was able to take out a boar with just a single punch without ever receiving an ounce of combat training. In addition to this, he can't believe that Zeke actually noticed that he was hiding. He basically concludes that Zeke is not a normal kid. Since his mother died very young and his father had no interest in him, he concludes that there is no way Zeke could have received a proper education. However, he isn't allowed to run away since he is the child of the family head, and because of this, he has been kept under surveillance. The strange dude realizes that things are getting very interesting at every turn. Zeke returns home and notices that there are visitors at the house. He can sense the strength of these visitors, and he wonders what it is that they want from him. He walks to the door to eavesdrop on their conversation, and from what he can sense, there is no killing intent from them. He then finally opens the door to see some men in the room, and he asks them why they have come. He notices that the men have the Eldragon emblem on their clothes. This gets him even more curious, and he wonders what the men want from him. Just then, the men tell him that they have come to take him because he needs to undergo an examination. Zeke almost loses his mind when he hears this, since no one told him about any freaking examination. Soon afterward, Zeke is taken to the main house. He never expected that he would come back after 1,000 years since he had been away from there. Zeke is dressed in a school uniform by the men who came to the house. It turns out that he was brought to the main house not for luxury, but to attend the academy known as Dragon's Nest. This was an academy that was established by the Eldragon family, and everyone born in the family aims to enroll in the academy. Apparently, they all receive education when they turn 7 years old, and today was the entrance examination. But Zeke didn't receive any education in the first place. However, Zeke has no choice but to take the exam since it is mandatory, which is why he was brought all the way from where he is staying in the woods. Zeke is frustrated by everything, and this causes him to bow his head in pain. While the other students walk past him, one of them with blue hair, Langus approaches him. Langus is from the Old Scale village, and he asks Zeke if he is fine or if he is in some sort of trouble. Zeke turns around to look at him, and he rudely asks him what he wants. Langus appears to be a timid person, as he tells Zeke that he was only trying to help since he looks like he is troubled. Zeke is shocked by Langus's approach. He can sense that he is the shy type, but he notices that he has some power running through him. Zeke gets on his feet and apologizes for being rude. He then introduces himself, and he tells Langus that he is only confused as to what the family heads are planning to make them do. Langus then replies that the exam content doesn't change from year to year. However, Zeke clears the air, telling Langus that he actually does not know what the exam is all about. Langus is shocked when he realizes that the dude in front of him truly has zero knowledge of what he is saying. Langus wonders if Zeke will be fine since he has no idea what he wants to face during the examination. Langus then decides to take the pain to explain to Zeke. Just as he is about to start explaining, a group of bullies appears from behind, calling Langus a runt. Even Zeke is shocked to hear someone calling Langus a runt. The bully group turns out to be led by a dude, Retin, and he is also from Old Scale Village. Retin makes fun of Langus, asking him why a runt like him is coming for the examination when he can go home and just play around. Langus still fails to catch the diss as he replies that he has come for the examination, but this only causes Retin to scream at him. Retin tells Langus that he is a piece of trash and that there is no way someone like him will ever get into the academy. Retin continues having a laugh at Zeke as he reminds him that his father is a mock dragon. Zeke notices that Langus is pissed as he can see that he has clenched his fist. Apparently, the Eldragon family has a hierarchy, which is established by an absolute monarch. The rookies are known as lesser dragons, the common soldiers are known as young dragons, and the captain class are the adult dragons. Sitting at the top are the elders, or executive class, and they are known as the elder dragons. However, there is a level at the bottom which is reserved for trash, and they are called the mock dragons. The mock dragons are those who failed to enter the dragon's nest or those who could not graduate from the academy. They are basically referred to as fakes, but Langus wants to prove that people like him are not fakes. Zeke then decides to join the conversation, and he asks Retin how he knows that Langus is trash when he hasn't even undergone the examination. Retin is shocked by Zeke's interference, and he asks him who he is and if he has a problem with him. Zeke replies that he is cool, but he just wants to know why Retin thinks it is impossible for Langus to enter the academy. Retin then replies that people like Langus are weaklings. Zeke is shocked to hear this, and he simply tells Retin that Langus is stronger than him and his gang of trash. This pisses Retin off as he asks Zeke if he is implying that they are beneath someone like Langus. Before the entire thing can blow up, an examiner shows up to tell the students that the entrance examination is about to begin. He tells the applicants that they are required to pick a number tag after registering. Retin stares at Zeke with so much disgust, promising that he is going to remember his face. Zeke is surprised that Retin is already pissed, and he wonders why the current youth are short-tempered. Langus is surprised to hear Zeke say this since they are all of the same age. Langus then adds that anyone would get mad if they were called weak. Zeke then asks if the exam is mandatory, but Langus mentions that he is free to withdraw if he thinks he lacks the ability to participate in it. This comes as a surprise to Zeke, but this further proves to Langus that Zeke knows nothing. Langus then advises Zeke to withdraw since he might get hurt during the examination. Zeke lets Langus know that he has no intention of withdrawing. Langus is surprised to see how confident Zeke is even though he has no idea what the exam is all about. Zeke then suggests that they get a move on before the exam begins. Momentarily, all of the applicants are gathered. The examiner stands in front to tell them the details of the exam. He lets them know that all they need to do is leave a scratch on the rock in front of them to pass the examination. However, no weapons aside from the ones provided by the examiners are allowed. To make it interesting, they are allowed to use their bare hands as long as they can make a scratch on the rock. The examiner then reveals that they all have 3 attempts each, but Zeke doesn't see this as a particularly difficult examination. Langus is horrified to hear this, and Zeke wonders what the surprise is, since all they need to do is get a scratch on the rock. Zeke was already expecting some crazy examination because of the trial that they put them through by having them drink dragon blood, but with what he is seeing, Zeke is highly disappointed. The examiner then orders the examination to begin. The first applicant walks up to the rock and slashes it with all his might, but this shatters his sword and leaves a loud bang that almost deafens those who are present. Even with all the strength that he put into it, he was unable to leave a scratch on the rock. The boy crashes to the ground in pain, and the examiners ask him if he is willing to use his remaining 2 attempts, but he is in so much pain that he can't. They declare this a forfeiture, and he is taken away. Zeke then notices that Langus is acting all weird, and he wonders why this is, since the exam appears to be easy. Zeke then asks Langus about the rock. Langus reveals that the rock is called the Regeneration Stone, and it can repair any minor scratch instantaneously. It also has the ability to reflect a damage impact by 100 times over if attacked with brute force. Zeke concludes that the rock is pretty outrageous. Langus then mentions that one can actually leave a scratch on it if the ether source power within a person is properly circulated. With what he just heard, Zeke figures out that it basically falls on the proper handling of the ether source power rather than the individual's martial arts skill. Zeke takes a glance at the participants and he figures out that there is a considerable number of applicants who should be able to pass the exam. He notices that Retin and his guys are also strong enough to pass the exam. From where he is sitting, he can hear the applicants failing one after the other after their arms are broken from trying to leave a scratch on the rock. Momentarily, the examiner calls on number 315, which is Zeke's number. Langus fears for Zeke and he urges Zeke to withdraw, but Zeke assures him that he will be fine. Zeke steps up, and once the examiner sets his sight on him, he senses an immense pressure and aura coming from Zeke. Zeke is asked for a choice of weapon, and Zeke replies that there is no need for one as he plans to use his bare hands. The examiner asks him again if he really doesn't want to use a weapon, and he says yes, assuring the man that his fists are enough to do the job. When the other students hear this, they start making fun of him, saying there is no way he is going to be able to get a scratch on the rock with just his fists. Even Langus doesn't believe in Zeke, as he genuinely believes that his arms and fists might get ripped off. Langus starts blaming himself, saying he should have tried to stop Zeke from participating in the exam. Since Zeke has made up his mind on what he wants, the examiner tells him to proceed. Zeke checks out the rock and admits that it is made up of a mineral he hasn't seen before. He concludes that it is something that formed after 1,000 years. He realizes that there are a lot of things that he doesn't know yet, but he decides to shift them all to the future. Zeke powers himself up, ready to punch the rock. With the amount of power he generated, he believes that it should be enough to do what he wants to the rock. The technique he prefers to use is called the Dragon Slayer combat technique form. A bright yellow aura forms around his body and arm as he smashes his arm into the rock. This shatters the top of the rock at impact, leaving a loud noise and a cloud of dust. Everyone is surprised, but while everyone is closing their eyes, the examiner's eyes remain open, acting like a big deal. Zeke heaves a sigh of relief, but notices that the technique is a bit advanced for him at his age. He checks out his arm to see that it is bleeding, and his uniform is also ripped. Instead of praising himself for breaking the rock, Zeke concludes that his training isn't enough. The other students are left to wonder how he did it. On the other hand, Retin is just mad that Zeke was able to smash the rock. Langus is left picking his jaw from the ground since Zeke is the last person he expects to pass the exam. Even the examiner considers what he just watched an impossibility because only someone who is a 4-star rank or higher should have been able to shatter the regeneration stone. Since Zeke is an illegitimate child, the examiner wonders if he somehow inherited the powers of the house. The examiner also figures out that he has seen the move that Zeke used somewhere else. Zeke then walks up to the examiner asking him how he fared in the examination. The examiner lets him know that he has passed, and he is given a bottle with a green substance in it. Zeke asks the junior examiner about the contents of the bottle, but the dude just stares at him with hatred, telling him to move away. Zeke just assumes that the bottle is a reward for passing the test. Zeke returns to his newly found friend, and Langus praises him for how amazing he was. Zeke then asks Langus about the bottle, and he reveals that it is a healing potion. Zeke is confused when he hears this, and Langus mentions that it is a normal grade healing potion. Zeke checks it out one more time and realizes that the substance doesn't look poisonous. He starts wondering if the said healing potion might actually be an elixir. Apparently, an elixir is a potion that is made from very rare materials, and it is combined with herbs that grow only in secret realms. In addition to this, pure elixir cores from divine and phantom beasts are added. Drinking the elixir basically heals old and recent wounds instantly, while also boosting one's ether. However, refining the elixir is very difficult since its ingredients are very difficult to find. This is why it rarely appears on the market. Zeke then consumes the healing potion, and just as expected, his torn arms heal back up. Zeke is blown away and realizes that the healing potion is really an elixir. Langus then says he has no idea what an elixir is, but the Eldragon healing potions are much better than the ones obtained from stores. Langus considers this a normal thing, while Zeke is entirely blown away, since all of his injuries healed instantly. However, he notices that there is no ether surge like when he takes an elixir. Langus then tells Zeke that he is quite impressive, but Zeke doesn't believe this. Zeke checks out the bottle and realizes that it is basically what human knowledge has been able to create for over a millennium. Langus then reminds Zeke that he is pretty strong, and Zeke replies that he aims to be the strongest, so he is not surprised. Retin and his gang of bullies soon step forward to take their test, and they all pass. Zeke is not surprised by this, as he already knows that they are going to pass. Finally, applicant 414 is called, and this turns out to be Langus. As he walks down the stairs, Zeke notices that Langus is nervous, and he urges him to pull himself together, assuring him that he is going to be fine. Langus basically turns around, telling Zeke to stop raising the bar so high. When Langus reaches the test site, he picks up a sword, leaving Zeke to wonder what the dude is actually doing. Langus takes a deep breath and launches his sword strike at the rock. However, he fails to leave a scratch, and he even falls down in the process. As usual, the examiner lets him know that he has 2 more trials. Langus then gets back on his feet to try again, but the result remains the same. He falls to the ground in tears, wondering if he is about to fail just like his bullies told him he would. Just as expected, Retin and the others are already laughing at him, saying the child of the half-dragon will always be half-dragon. They urge him to give up while reminding Zeke that he earlier said that someone as weak as Langus is stronger than they. The examiner then tells Langus that he has just 1 more try. They ask him if he wants to try again, and Langus starts to stutter as he falls into a state of total darkness. Just then, Zeke's voice appears from the darkness, asking him what he is doing. Langus turns around in confusion, and Zeke suggests that he use a spear instead of a sword. Langus is still confused by this, and Zeke says he means what he said. Zeke berates Langus for using a weapon that doesn't suit him. Zeke assures him that no matter how many times he tries, he won't be able to make a dent in the rock using a sword. Retin and his friends start laughing at Zeke again, saying Langus was taught to use a sword from when he was a kid, and he never took spear lessons. At the same time, they believe that Langus will still remain his pathetic self, even if he switches weapons. Zeke then asks the examiner if they are allowed to change weapons mid-test. The examiner assures Zeke that there is no problem in doing this. Zeke smiles at Langus, telling him that he is free to go ahead and use a spear. Zeke stands as a proper motivational speaker, asking Langus if he is ready to leave like a loser, but Langus says no. Langus then gets back on his feet as he tells Zeke that he will take his suggestion and try using a spear. Apparently, Langus's father wasn't allowed to enter the dragon's nest, and he was always at the receiving end of mockery. Even with all of these, he never gave up, and he still made sure to raise his son well. Because of everything his father did for him, Langus is willing to prove that he is not fake. He remembers Zeke saying he will always meet the same result no matter how many times he uses a sword. He hasn't known Zeke for long, but he is choosing to believe in him. However, he doesn't know how he is supposed to use the spear, and Zeke just tells him to thrust it straight. He urges him not to think hard about it and just do it. Langus knows it is impossible for a first-time spear wielder to just hit the regeneration stone and damage, but he will never be sure if he doesn't try it. Even though he just met Zeke, he is choosing to trust him. Since Zeke believes in him, he also wants to do the same. Langus takes his stance, and he notices that the ether source energy flowing through his body is actually different from when he was holding a sword. Langus rushes toward the stone and hits it, leaving a massive shockwave. Retin and his gang of bullies start laughing, saying there was no difference, even though Langus changed weapons. However, on a closer look, they realize that Langus was able to do it. They are shocked when they see this, and even the examiner cannot believe that Langus actually pierced the stone with the spear. Zeke is proud of Langus, and he claps for him. Langus cannot believe his eyes when the examiner records in his book that he has passed the test. Langus is forced to ask again to confirm, but Zeke hugs him from behind, assuring him that he actually did it. With tears in his eyes and happiness, he hugs Zeke. Retin and his boys don't want to believe that Langus actually passed the test, and they all believe that it is a stroke of luck. The examiner then screams at the top of his voice, telling the applicants that the exam is over and what is next is the entrance ceremony. When Zeke hears this, he is surprised. He can't believe that scratching the rock is the only test that they are going to require of them. Langus then tells Zeke that there might actually be another exam after they enter the academy. Zeke then asks Langus what they are supposed to do since they have passed the test already, and Langus reveals that the heads of the Eldragon family will show up to give the participants their congratulatory words. Just then, a bunch of aura farming men appear in the distance, walking toward the students. Among them is a dude who catches Zeke's attention, and he asks Langus who the gloomy dude is. Langus cannot believe that Zeke just trash-talked the family head. Zeke doesn't hold back as he calls the family head an ugly dude, but before he can say anything further, Langus covers his mouth with his hand. Langus begs Zeke to be quiet and not say anything, and even though it is hard, Zeke decides to keep quiet. Zeke stares at the men, who are considered to be the Eldragon's forces. He is impressed because there are a couple of decent dudes since they are mostly 6 stars. However, the head of the family, Balza Eldragon, is an 8-star warrior, which makes him a big deal. Back in his time, there were just a few 8 stars in the world, and Zeke wonders just how many will be left. Zeke then tells Langus how he feels. He lets him know that he doesn't like Balza. He doesn't even care if the man is his father or not. Just then, Balza steps forward with an overwhelming aura to address the students. He only says a few words to the students, and this is him telling them to become the flesh and blood of the Eldragon. However, these words carry a crushing weight alongside his aura as all of the students except Zeke start to tremble. Even Langus complains of how hard it is for him to breathe, but Zeke feels nothing from Balza's presence. All he can feel toward Balza is pure hatred, even though he doesn't know why. After he is done addressing the student, Balza turns around to leave. Another elder then takes the reins, telling the students that the head of the house is expecting great things from them. This person catches Zeke's attention too, and he starts to wonder who the blonde-haired elder is. Zeke figures out that Balza's departure has reduced the tension on the students a bit, but they all remain composed from the aftermath of Balza's presence. The examiner then steps forward to reveal that they are going to announce the dormitory assignments. Zeke is shocked to hear this, as he thought they would all be going to the same place. Langus then decides to explain to him since he knows nothing. He tells him that the academy has 4 dorms. The students are assigned to one of the 4 dorms, which are the East, West, North, and South dorms. Momentarily, Zeke hears his name and he stands up to leave. He tells his new friend to take care of himself, and the two exchange pleasantries before he leaves. Zeke has been assigned to the Academy's East dorm, and he is surprised to see how much things have changed in over 1,000 years. He follows the directions written in the note in his hand to navigate his way to his room. He is worried that his roommate will be mad that he is coming in late, and this all happened because he got lost. He finally makes it to the door, and with all enthusiasm, he opens the door to announce his arrival and greet his new roommate. However, the enthusiasm and excitement die off when he sees who his roommate is. Zeke cannot believe that his roommate is none other than Langus, and when he sees the boy, he just assumes that he has an unexplainable connection with him. Langus smiles while agreeing with him and also mentioning the fact that he was already feeling lonely. Zeke then asks Langus if there is no plan for the day, and he says there is none. Since their training session will start the next day, they have been instructed to rest. Zeke has no idea of this since he was not paying attention during the entire orientation session. He looks bright while admitting this, but Langus doesn't think it's something that he should be proud of. Langus decides to move past the entire scolding session and suggests that they get some sleep since they will be training the next day. Apparently, Zeke was initially planning to ditch the school and just go on an adventure, but the new things that he saw since he arrived at the school interested him. He has decided to stick with the house just a little bit if this will help him to learn more about the world after a millennium. A month later, the kids are undergoing intensive training under their tutor. They are being taught how to master the dragon's breath, which was made by the 15th head of House Eldragon. The tutor tells them that they need to master the technique so that they can use it in any situation. The tutor moves around, keeping an eye on the kids. He notices that some of them have mastered it, and one of them is Laika, the head of the house's daughter. Apparently, she is already skilled enough to be classified as a 2nd star. However, he is more interested in Zeke. While everyone else is struggling, Zeke is carrying a boulder on his head while holding 2 dumbbells that have small boulders on them too. The tutor starts to draw closer to the fact that Zeke inherited the head's power. However, he wonders how he is able to master everything since he had no teacher who could have put him through. The teacher can only wonder, but couldn't come to a conclusion. On the other hand, Zeke is thinking about how the breathing technique, the Dragon King's breath that he invented, has been modified and passed down as Dragon's breath. Apparently, breathing techniques are ways to draw ether from the air into one's body and pass it around, which ultimately helps to enhance the ether. However, the optimal level depends on the user's skill and creativity. This is the reason each noble house refines its own style and keeps the finished technique secure. Zeke admits that the technique is safe and easy to learn, but he believes that it is utterly useless if he can only use it when he is standing still. Basically, his original technique allows him to use ether while moving around. The effects of the technique are huge, but only a few inherited it because of how difficult it is. Zeke simplified it back then so that anyone could use it in order to make the clan stronger, but he never thought it would evolve and be around for 1,000 more years. Zeke is impressed by this, and he believes that there might have been other martial arts techniques that have changed over time too. After the training session, the kids head to the dining hall to eat. While everyone is struggling to eat due to tiredness, Zeke is munching on his food without a care in the world. He notices that Langus is looking drained, and he urges him to eat his food because he won't be able to move optimally if he runs out of energy. Langus is forced to ask Zeke how he is so full of energy when everyone else is drained. Zeke disses Langus, telling him that he is just a weakling. He urges him to eat more and train harder. While lecturing Langus, Zeke notices that some of the kids who are well-trained are actually eating their food. Just then, Zeke is approached by Laika, and because Zeke doesn't know her, he straight up asks her who she is. Langus almost chokes on his food when he hears this, and he quickly moves to Zeke to whisper in his ear. He tells him that Laika is the head's daughter, but Zeke innocently tells Langus that he had no idea. Langus is almost dying from pressure as he tells Zeke that they are not even supposed to be talking to Laika. Zeke just stares at him like a fool, while telling him that he is also the head's son, even though he is an illegitimate child. Langus and Laika are both shocked when they hear this, and Laika asks him if he is telling the truth. Zeke calmly replies that he has no reason to lie. Laika then asks him how he was able to get strong enough to smash a regeneration stone with his bare hands. Laika is genuinely interested, but Zeke just replies that he was able to do it because he is just a cool dude. Zeke notices that Langus is totally out of his zone, and he calls him back out of it, telling him to eat his food. Laika then moves closer to Zeke, asking him if he would like to join her. Zeke is confused by what she means, and Laika says it plainly, urging Zeke to become her subordinate. Laika tells Zeke that she is going to become his backer since he is an illegitimate child, and he would obviously want allies. Laika wants Zeke to assist her in becoming the next head using his power, and she promises to reward him generously when she becomes head of the family. She sweet-talks this, but Zeke calmly tells her that he is not interested in the offer. When Laika hears this, she assumes that Zeke is also aiming to become the head of the family, which is why he is rejecting the proposal. While she is busy spewing her trash, Zeke is observing her, and he sees that she is already on the verge of becoming 2 stars, and he considers it something impressive for her age. Zeke finally opens his mouth to tell the girl that she is free to do whatever she likes because he is not interested in anything that concerns the family. Laika is shocked to hear this, and she gets more persistent as she asks Zeke what he really wants. Zeke is pissed off, and he angrily stabs the table with his table knife while unleashing a scary amount of pressure from his body to tell Laika that he has no interest in serving anyone. Zeke says he wants to be alone because he is obviously the strongest. Laika can feel the pressure from Zeke, leaving her utterly shocked. She cannot believe that Zeke's aura is actually scaring her. Zeke continues munching on his food while Langus tries to calm the situation. Laika then loses it, and she challenges Zeke to a duel. Zeke is surprised by this, but he is not one to shy away from a challenge. In no time, the news about the duel spread among the students that Laika is having a duel at the training grounds. The students rush over to watch the duel, and while Langus is freaking out, Zeke is acting very casual. Langus tries to remind Zeke that he is about to fight Laika, but Zeke simply replies that he has no idea who she is. Zeke then notices that Langus is also acting formally, and he asks him why this is. "Well, genius, this is because you are the head's son," Langus says. Zeke then asks Langus what it is that he wants from him. Zeke tries to explain the situation to him. He says Laika is Balza's daughter, and she also has Typhona blood, which is basically one of the 4 great houses backing Eldragon. Langus says Laika is a genius because she was able to master every form of swordsmanship that comes from House Typhona. Zeke just stands there casually while telling Langus that the only thing he is aware of is the fact that she is Balza's daughter. Zeke starts laughing, saying that not knowing actually adds more juice to the entire thing. He considers it an exciting turn of events, while Langus scolds him that there is no way he is going to win against Laika. Langus asks him why he accepted the challenge in the first place, and Zeke says it is obvious that he is expected to accept if he is challenged to a duel. In addition to this, Zeke stares at Laika, and he concludes that she looks readier for the duel. Laika then screams at Zeke to stop chattering while staring at him with her sword pushed into the ground like a proper warrior, and asks Zeke if he is ready to be taught some really good manners. If you like this video, comment next part in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time again.